Nowadays, you can get many cool accessories to upgrade your vehicle, from dash cams and mirror dash cams, to advanced heads-up displays with mirror mode, to CarPlay or Android Auto systems, radar detectors, add-on USB ports, and more. One common thing between all this tech is that they need power. Whether it needs 12V or 5V USB power, the typical way to get power is to use 12V cigarette power adapters like these, or a USB charger like this. The problem is that it either takes up your 12V cigarette lighter port, or it takes away USB ports used to charge your phone. Plus, it looks ugly with the cables hanging out or sticking out from the dash. In this video, I show you how I use fuse taps to easily hardwire any of these cool accessories to a vehicle. Time to replace these 12V socket adapters and USB adapters. Here's a bonus tip now. I use these quality inline connectors so that no splicing, soldering, or crimping of wires is needed. Fracking Creations, showing you the good stuff. Disclaimer and warnings. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Though I am an avid car enthusiast who has installed many car accessories and dash cams, I am not a professional installer. There are always risks associated with DIY car work where you can get hurt or damage property. Read our full disclaimer at the bottom of the video description before you assume all risk and attempt any kind of installation of your own. When installing anything, always consult the manuals specific to the device for precautions and specific installation steps. ACC or BAT power. To hardwire any of these accessories, I will be using fuse taps. Fuse taps allow me to easily tap into the fuse box to get 12V vehicle power. The fuse box will have fuse slots with at least two modes of operation, ACC or BAT. For the devices that should only be powered on when the vehicle is in accessory mode, they would be connected to an ACC or accessory fuse slot. This means that the fuse slot only provides power when the vehicle is in accessory or on mode. When connected to ACC, the devices will not drain the battery when the vehicle is turned off. For the devices that need to be powered even when the vehicle is in off mode, they would be connected to a BAT or battery fuse slot. This means that even when the vehicle is turned off, the fuse slot is still providing power. Note that if the device I am adding does not have built-in battery protection features, using BAT can cause the battery to get drained because it will always be on with nothing protecting it. For most devices, they only need to be powered when the vehicle is turned on. Examples include devices like heads-up displays, CarPlay or Android Auto systems, USB charging ports, phone chargers, radar detectors, and so on. So for these devices, ACC power will do. The exceptions are this smart USB adapter cable and USB power panel. This smart USB adapter cable has a smart feature to turn the cable off when the vehicle battery drains to a certain voltage, thereby protecting the battery. On the other hand, this USB power panel has an on-off power switch that can be used to manually switch it off. Either of these two can be connected to BAT or ACC depending on how I want to use it. For devices like dash cams that have parking mode operation, power is still needed even when the vehicle is turned off. For proper parking mode operation, dash cams need both the ACC and BAT power. Hardwire power cables. For any of the devices that I want to hardwire, I will need to purchase the appropriate hardwire power cables for them. These cables will then be connected to the appropriate fuse taps, which are then connected to the fuse box of the vehicle. For dash cams, radar detectors, dash cam battery packs, and anything else that is 12V powered, a proper hardwire cable kit is required for that specific accessory. For anything that is USB powered, a USB adapter cable or USB smart adapter cable is required, plus a long USB power extension cable. Using these USB adapter cables, we can provide USB power to anything that is USB powered, like some dash cams, the HUDway Drive heads-up display, CarPlay, Android Auto systems, phones, and more. Just connect the USB power cable to the USB adapter cable or USB power panel and route to the device. Find out more on using and installing these USB adapter cables and this 12V power panel in our other video on adding USB ports to a vehicle. Finding a fuse slot to use for hardwiring. A fuse tap will add another power circuit to an existing fuse slot in the fuse box. This allows for two different devices to be powered by one fuse slot while separately protecting each circuit with a fuse. The first circuit is for the original device, while the second circuit is for the new device I am adding. If I want to get fancy, I can use a dual fuse tap, which will allow me to add two new devices. To find the correct type of fuse tap I need, I will first need to find the fuse box to use for the install. Check with the vehicle owner's manual to locate one. Most vehicles have a fuse box under the dashboard on the driver's side that can be used. Other vehicles like European makes will have the main fuse box in the trunk. In the chosen fuse box, there will be at least 4 different fuse types as shown here. Depending on what power I need, I will have to find the appropriate ACC or BAT fuse slot that I want to use before determining the corresponding fuse tap that I need. If the fuses are all the same, then it is very easy to determine. I use a 12-volt circuit tester to determine whether a fuse slot is ACC or BAT and which one I would like to tap into. I check the vehicle's fuse diagram and make sure to not choose and not use fuse slots for important and essential systems like engine, ABS brakes, SRS airbag, traction control, transmission, and so on. Some fuse slots are spare, empty, and available slots, so I like using those as a first choice to test. If you are looking for fuse taps or a circuit tester, I have purchase links in the video description below. Next, depending on whether I need an ACC or a BAT fuse slot, or both, here is how I find one. Finding a BAT fuse slot. If needed, I will take a picture of the fuse box with my phone before I start removing fuses. With the vehicle turned off and not on accessory mode, I connect the circuit tester to a ground point and test the fuses. A ground bolt should be near the fuse box that can be used. For the battery circuit, I want a non-essential fuse that is still powered when the vehicle is off. The light in the circuit tester should light up when tested. I then use the fuse removal tool to remove the chosen fuse. Make sure to remember which fuse slot this comes from. Another thing to note is that some fuse slots have additional modes of operation, like being on a timer or being connected to a switch in the vehicle, which will turn the circuit on or off independently to the on, off, or AC modes of the vehicle. When testing the fuses, it could give you inconsistent or confusing behavior, so it is best to avoid these types of fuse slots and move on to the next one. If you have a BMW or Audi, there are additional things to note, so find a link in the video description for more info. Finding an ACC fuse slot. With the vehicle turned off and not on accessory mode, I use the circuit tester to test for a fuse that has no power when the vehicle is turned off. It should also be from a fuse that is not for an important vehicle system, as mentioned before. In this case, I have a spare or empty fuse slot I will test where there is no fuse to remove. It is important to check that both terminals should not have power. I then turn the vehicle into ACC mode and recheck the fuse I chose. It should now have power. How to use fuse taps properly. In order to properly use a fuse tap in either of the BAT or ACC fuse slots, I next have to test both terminals of the fuse slot to determine which terminal of the slot is providing the power. The reason I need to do this is because the fuse taps are directional. Even though you can technically use the fuse tap in either orientation, one of them is the correct orientation. For the fuse taps to be used properly, the common leg that both fuses are connected to needs to be inserted into the slot that provides power. If inserted in the wrong orientation, then the fuse tap is not going to work as designed in protecting the circuits. For each fuse slot I want to use, I have to check all terminals separately because sometimes neighboring fuse slots have the terminals oriented differently. With the vehicle in ACC mode, I can test the chosen BAT or ACC fuse slots to determine which terminal provides power. I will have to remember which terminal provides the power so that I can orient the fuse tap properly later. By the way, if you are watching our video embedded on someone else's website but want to support our work, launch our video in YouTube and use our links in the description to purchase the products we show, use, or recommend. It will allow us to continue to provide the great quality videos you enjoy. If I'm adding more than one fuse tap, then I have to make sure to remember which fuse belongs to which fuse slot and which fuse slot is ACC or BAT. I don't want to mix anything up or I could cause damage or the device I am adding won't work as expected and the fuses won't protect the circuits properly. Based on the fuse slot selected and the fuse removed, I now know which of the 4 fuse taps I need. I insert the removed fuse into the bottom slot of the appropriate fuse tap. If I picked an empty fuse slot in the fuse box, then there will be no fuse for the bottom slot of the fuse tap. I make sure to turn the vehicle back to off before continuing with the install for safety reasons. Next, I connect the appropriate fuse tap to the hardwire power cable, USB adapter cable, or USB power panel. Most power cables only have 2 cables. One is for ground, which should be black, and the other is for 12-volt power. For dashcam hardwire cables, there are typically 2 power cables, one for ACC and one for BAT, and the last is ground. To be safe, I make sure to double check with the documentation or labeling of the power cable. To connect the fuse tap to the hardwire power cable, I can use the supplied crimp connectors, making sure to crimp properly and to do a pull test. Alternatively, I like to use these inline wire connectors for fast, easy connecting and disconnecting. They are high quality, German made, and rated up to 20 amps and 300 volts. Just make sure not to go above or below the minimum and maximum wire gauge specs, or power ratings. For safety, I make sure to only connect and disconnect from the inline connectors when the fuse tap is not connected to the fuse box. I also ensure to do a pull test and that there are no exposed wires sticking out from the crimp or inline connector. To select the appropriate fuse for the new accessory I am adding, I will have to check the amperage power requirements for it, but this is beyond the scope of the video. Most dashcams won't need more than 2 amps, plus some dashcam hardwire cables already have inline fuses. For USB adapter cables like this and other hardwire power cables, they are originally meant to be installed directly to the vehicle's battery, so they already have appropriate inline fuses. I just match the fuse for the fuse tap to the included inline fuses. I insert the appropriate fuse to the top slot of the fuse tap. As a general rule, I make sure not to go higher than a total of 30 amps for all the fuses in the fuse tap, whether it is the single or dual fuse tap. Also, for each add-on circuit, staying below 10 amps is safer. Once the hardwiring power cable is ready, I like to label the fuse taps to avoid confusion and to be able to remember which circuit is which in case I need to check the circuits in the future, or if I need to replace or move to a different vehicle. With the hardwiring cable ready for use, I first install the ground wire. I locate a grounding point to connect the black ground wire to. Usually there will be one near the fuse box that uses a bolt to secure. I carefully loosen and add the hardwire cable's ground wire, while being careful to ensure all existing ground cables do not get left out. I firmly tighten the bolt but do not over tighten. Next, I plug the appropriate fuse tap into the appropriate fuse slot for the battery circuit and the accessory circuit, making sure to use the correct orientation for proper use of the fuse taps. Final steps. The last step is to test that the new accessory is working as expected, before safely routing and hiding the cables. All cables need to be routed safely away from vehicle pedals, airbags, and sharp objects. I use cable clips and zip ties to secure the cables so that they do not get damaged or loosen and become a safety hazard. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe, like, and share our videos with anyone else you think would enjoy it. Check back for more good stuff to come.